Just be sure and keep one hand underneath his booty just to be able to support him so he doesn't feel like he's slipping.
Do you have 3 or a 2-toe sloth?
He's a two-toed, yeah. Got 2 on the front and 3 on the back. Would make more sense to say
It's not like you're having a good
because
time, I just like you're scared.
It's definitely a different experience to hold for the first time.
Hi.
And so when we're petting, we just want to do real slow strokes all the way down the back. Doing the scritches and things like that are a little bit weird for them. You know, a dog or a cat might really like those,
Right.
but for a sloth, it's a lot different.
And
they
don't
have-
do that, that's what she's saying, don't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, just want to use an
Like
open
this.
hand just to go down the back. Yeah. And so they do have really poor eyesight. They have a condition that's called rod monochromacy, and that means that they only have rod cells in their eyes and no cone cells. And so the cone cells are what's responsible for seeing color, while the rod cells pick up motion. So they are colorblind since they don't have the cone cells, but the rod cells allow them to see motion a lot better than we do. And they pick up a little bit of movement better than we would. You know, if there was like a leaf that blew by on the floor or something out of the corner of my eye, probably just going to deem that as insignificant, not going to be worried too much about it. But for a sloth, that in the rainforest, anything could try to eat a sloth, and they have essentially no defense mechanism. They've got to pick up on those little movements because jaguars not going to come barreling out of nowhere. They're going to be creeping up real slow, so they've got to know to react to that.
His chin or?
The chin is kind of alarming for them because their eyesight's so poor, they really can't see what's coming, and all of a sudden something touching their neck that they can't see coming can be kind of startling.
See, when I gave him this for Christmas, I bought him this shirt also, so he looks like, he's like a sloth tree.
Oh, yeah.
That's why he thinks you're a tree.
Yeah.
So, we've done a sloth tour, I don't know, some foreign country, where you weren't allowed to touch them and all this kind of stuff, but they said that the most dangerous time for them is when they come out of the tree to go to the bathroom?
Yes, 100%. So the sloths will have all that moss and algae on their backs that help them to camouflage in when they're up in the canopy of the rainforest, but they have to go all the way down to the base of the tree to go to the bathroom when they get the urge about once a week, which is a good thing they only go once a week because they've got to go all the way down there. And it is very dangerous for them because that's where a lot of other jaguars or bigger animals could be that could see them a lot easier if they're down there rather than if they're up in the tops of the trees. But it's really important for the sloths that they do that, even though it's dangerous for them, because in the wild they have moths living all over their backs and all throughout their fur. And those moths are really important to the sloths, and it's a whole symbiotic relationship that they have with those moths. And the reason why they have to go all the way down to the floor is because those moths need somewhere to repopulate, and they can't fly like other moths can. They require direct contact with the surface they're trying to get to. So the sloth has to go all the way down to the floor, and they'll start to kind of wiggle their little booties back and forth while they're going to the bathroom, and that signifies those moths to come down, crawl down off of the sloths, lay their eggs in the dung pile of the sloth, and then crawl back up before they lose their ride going back to the canopy of the rainforest. And then a week later, when the sloth gets the urge to go to the bathroom again, they go back to that same exact spot because in that spot are last week's eggs that were laid that are now this week's larvae, and last week's larvae in that same spot are now this week's moths, and those moths will crawl back up. So the cycle is always repeated and always goes around, so that the sloth always has those moths on their backs. Because those moths will produce a very specific type of bacteria in their waste that the sloths will utilize to digest their food. They don't use an enzymatic process like we do, it's through a bacterial process. And they have to get that bacteria from somewhere because they're constantly losing that bacteria in the wild. When temperature fluctuates in the wild, the sloth's temperature will as well because they can't maintain their own body temperature. It takes too much energy to do that. And so if it drops outside, the sloth's temperature will drop, and then that bacteria that they're using in their guts to digest their food will be wiped out. And so they need those moths on their back to be able to lick up more of that bacteria. In captivity, you can see he doesn't have any moths on his back. So then that kind of beckons the question for a lot of people, well, then how do they digest their food? But you have to keep in mind that we keep them in a controlled environment. It's always 78 to 79 degrees in here, and we only let them go into their outdoor enclosures when it's above 75 degrees. So we don't ever have to worry about that bacteria being wiped out. And the bacteria that they have in their system, they actually got from their mothers. Around day 3 is when the baby starts to be interested with what mom's doing and what she's eating. And so they'll climb onto her chest. And while she's eating, they'll climb up there and start licking around her mouth and kind of eating some of those leaves and kind of licking her saliva up. And the saliva that she has in her mouth also has that bacteria in it, so the baby will get just a little bit of that, and then it'll start to kickstart that whole bacteria system that they're using.
Well, I heard that because of all of them, they smell.
So that's a big misconception about
Really?
sloths because,
You know,
it's
smell.
just readjusting. Because they have all those moths on them and everything in the wild, as well as that moss and algae. So looking at them, you'd think they would be a stinky animal, but sloths don't have any natural scent glands, musk glands, odor glands, or sweat glands. So they essentially smell just like the rest of their environment does. And so, you know, they smell just like the rest of their environment does. So out in the rainforest, they smell just like the rest of the rainforest, which is why snakes are not a very common animal that tries to eat a sloth. They would take that opportunity if they just happened to cross the sloth, but they're not going to be able to hunt a sloth because they hunt by sense of smell and temperature variations. And since they don't have either one of those, it doesn't really, it's pretty difficult for them to be picked up when they're out in the rainforest. And so the sloths, if you smell anything on them, it's just, since they go to the bathroom once a week, it's pretty pungent when it comes out, and it's a big puddle and tile in the floor, and so that sits, they tend to go in the middle of the night, so it sits there for a few hours while nobody's down here, and really stinks up the place. And so if you smell anything on them, that's probably just residue from their environment smelling like that.
So do you know what day they're gonna poop?
Most of the time,
Right.
yeah. So Zoe, she was on a very strict schedule where every Friday evening she would go to the bathroom overnight, and then Saturday morning we would have a big mess to clean up.
Right.
She was on that schedule for about a month and a half, and now she's kind of spotty. She's still right out about every 7 days, but if she goes on, you know, a Saturday, then it'll be the next Saturday or Sunday. But Dash, since he's still a lot younger, he typically goes every 5 days. So his days are off just a little bit. It's not a consistent.
Yeah, where did we get this?
Well, so they're native to Central and South America, so obviously not native to just being one out in the forest here. But the breeder that we got both Dash and Zoe from is actually a veterinarian. He's been breeding sloths for over 35 years. So what started his program was he was working down where they're native to, trying to rehabilitate some of them that had been electrocuted. They're trying to pass a roadway, they'll be electrocuted by that power line if they touch 2 of them at the same time when they complete that circuit. And that can cause some really deep tissue damage. So he was trying his best to rehabilitate some of those with a group of other people, but the ones that their injuries were significant enough that they could not be rehabilitated are what started his breeding program. And so he lives in the States, and after we brought them over, they were just, the 2-toed sloths are a lot more easily acclimated into an environment like this than the 3-toed sloths are. So you really don't see a whole lot of 3-toed sloths in North America.
Which one's your favorite?
That's a hard pick. They all have very different personalities. Flash definitely tests my patience every single day, but I still love him very much. So in the mornings, Flash was raised very, very differently than Dash and Zoe were. So Dash and Zoe are both comfortable with being held. Flash has never been held, and we will never hold him unless he climbs onto us. Because Dash and Zoe both had a very conditioning process from like a week old when they were still on their mothers to get them comfortable with being around people. So naturally, sloths are very, very solitary animals that are not even going to be snuggled up next to another sloth, let alone be looking for a person to climb onto.
Right.
But Dash and Zoe both actively seek out human interaction, which is not a normal characteristic for them. But after all that conditioning that they went through, that's something that they slowly adapted to, you know, enjoying. So sloths are very routine animals, even more so than a dog or a cat. You know, our dogs and cats kind of get to understand our routine, and they know when mom's alarm clock goes off and after she comes out of the bathroom, she's coming in to feed me. So they'll go ahead and beat us into the kitchen. Sloths are even more so routine animals. They really enjoy doing the same thing at the same time in the same way every day.
So we have a border collie that knows what time 6 o'clock is. You know, it's like it's dinner time. He'll start reminding you to quarter till you're like, nope, not time yet. No.
Yep. They pick up on little cues like that so that they can, you know, figure out what time it is and what time they're supposed to have certain things done.
No, am I allowed?
Well, you'll spend the first 30 minutes in here with us, and
Okay.
it doesn't look like Flash is going to be coming down.
I'm not.
And so
See, I thought the thing was that you didn't get to hold unless you did the VIP.
that's what it is typically. But with a circumstance like this, when Flash would be the one that you would be interacting with first, he would be the one that you were just petting and feeding. But since he's not coming down, we just have to make adjustments for that. So you'll be able to hold him if you want to here for just a little bit instead of the first 30 minutes for this. So did you want to switch over for the last like 15? Did you hold?
And honestly, I mean, we don't have to do the whole thing, it was just, I mean,
Well, it's totally
unless
up to
there's
you.
another one that we can.
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
There's Zoe is our other holding sloth, and so if you wanted to for the last 15 minutes that you're going to be with us, you could hold, since Flash doesn't look like he's coming down.
Yeah.
And then for the last 30 minutes, then we'll get Zoe out, and we'll just be able to hold her for that. Is that what you want to do?
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So you won't have to do anything. He's just on the phone. All right. It might be easier if you guys switch chairs now, because in that blue chair, it's a lot easier to more secure and comfortable if you're leaning more back or forward. So he's just going to open up his back legs and wrap around your waist. His booty. He'll support his weight. There we go.
Hi, what do you think, buddy? How old is he?
He just turned a year old about a month ago.
Ah.
August 5th. It's a little over a month now.
So I got some really good pictures of his eyes, which you really can't see, you know,
Yeah.
from that angle. Look at his little mouth.
And those tiny little pinpoint pupils that are on right now are like that in the daytime.
Yeah.
But at nighttime, they dilate quite a bit to where there's more black in the eyes than there is the iris. And that allows them to just see their vision kind of works like goggle vision. They probably don't have that green hue. Looking through night goggles, you really just see blobs and shapes moving around. You can't.
What the color Bane was.
Oh, that's my main horse.
Is it a unicorn without a horn?
She's supposed to look like it, yeah. So
Yeah.
we use her for our birthday parties. So we'll dye her tail and the mane like that. And then she's got a little strap-on unicorn horn that she'll use to the kids go crazy for.
You can get a picture of him.
And then on average, they eat about 10% of their body weight every day. Now, it does fluctuate quite a bit too, depending on the time of week that it is. So right before they go to the bathroom, they're not as hungry. And we thought he was going to go last night, and he didn't. So that's why he's a little bit more hesitant with eating this morning, because you can just tell all day they're just uncomfortable, they're bloated, they're just, their tummies are rumbling a lot more than usual. And their digestive system is already extremely slow. That's why they only go once a week. It takes about 30 days for everything to be digested through from start to finish. And it is only a one-way system. They don't have a two-way valve like we do, where it allows us to vomit. So if they eat something that doesn't sit right with them, or if they eat too much, they're stuck with that for another 30 days, and that can be a pretty upset stomach there for a while. And since it's so sensitive and so slow moving, as their keepers, we have to be really diligent on record keeping and making sure that we're, keeping track of everything, every little, change. If he didn't eat for a day for whatever reason, we've got to track that, or how much they eat, what they eat. Because they're picky sometimes. Sometimes Flash especially, he'll go through spells where he only wants sweet potato and he won't eat anything else. And it's like, you've got to have a balanced diet. And so I'll try to chop up his other things and mix it in with sweet potato just to be able for him to, get everything. And he'll still nose his way around just to pick up the sweet potatoes. So we've got to track all of that, because if they had an infrequent bowel movement today, if he had, some runny stool or something, the reason for that did not happen yesterday or even last week. It's been 30 days ago. And so we've got to keep track of all that and make sure that we know what could have caused it or what could be, going wonky with him.
Now, will he eat that entire bowl? Like, is that a system?
It
or is that just a
depends.
steak?
It depends. So we fill up the whole bowl, because sometimes he'll eat the whole thing. Most of the time not, but usually like right after he goes to the bathroom, he would eat the whole thing in one sitting. And then we just they're all snackers. They eat multiple times throughout the day at different times. Usually while we're doing encounters and things too, they'll start looking around, see if there's food to be had.
So, on the schedule, the times were 10 and 10:30. Is that the only time that?
That's the only time that Flash does his encounters. So since he's not like Dash and Zoe, where he doesn't actively seek out human interaction, well, I say that, but he really does enjoy John. John only was able to come down here for a few minutes this morning. That's probably why he didn't come down, because he hears John's voice and he'll start skedaddling down a lot quicker.
Really?
I'm kind of chopped liver because I've been here the shortest. I've been here for just about 4.5 months, but John has been his primary for day one.
Is that the guy that checked us in?
Maybe. Yeah, probably so.
Maybe.
Maybe.
You just, that was you said skedaddle.
Yeah.
and a sloth in the same sentence.
Yes, they definitely can move. You're trolling all over the place now, buddy. They can definitely move a lot quicker than a lot of people think that they would, especially in captivity like this, because they eat diets that they're not going to be exposed to in the wild that has a lot more calories in it. And that's really why the reason is that sloths are so slow, is because their diet only allows them to go so slow. In the wild, they're eating about 95% leaf material, and leaves don't have a whole lot of calories in it, and it takes calories to make energy. So since they're so low on energy already, they don't really have the means to be moving very fast.
So do they generally stay in the same tree?
Research shows different things. So in the past, years ago, that's what most scientists believed, is that they would stay in the same tree for weeks, months, or years at a time, as long as that tree was prolific enough and had enough foliage to cover them and provide food for them. But current research shows that a sloth can move as much as a mile in a day, or I say in a day, more so at night. They don't move around as much in the daytime. And at night they'll move around a lot more. And that's when they'll be, looking for different leaves and things to eat, because it's not every leaf that they can eat. It's only a very specific amount of those leaves. So the sarcopia trees that they're staying in, the sarcopia trees that they're staying in will build up a toxin in the leaves over time, and so they really can't eat the older leaves. It has to be the fresher leaves that they eat. So those only grow out on the very end of the branches and on the very tops of the trees.
But they still go to the bathroom at the same place?
Yep, every single time. So
No matter
most of the
where they
time
go.
Yeah, so they can travel as much as a mile, but that's probably a loop that they've made to come back to that same tree to go to the bathroom.
So where was it that we actually saw them in the
Costa
tree?
Rica.
Costa Rica,
Yeah.
in the parks? I mean, like, up in the trees, just like a squirrel, you know?
Yeah.
And there was one that they had this pole, and you would put it on the pole, lean over, and back up, and walk up the pole, back down. That's all he did all day long, walked around. Remember that?
Yeah.
Going backwards. lay
That was
there,
at one of the sanctuaries.
Yeah, go back up the pole.
That was strange. How long ago was that you guys went to do that?
2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was-
It was an excursion on a cruise ship, so.
we lost all hope of ever touching one because,
I was wanting to have
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been a good thing that here recently the Conservancy Agency has been shutting down a lot of facilities that used to allow people to hold and handle the sloths down there, because those are wild sloths. And I already talked about that whole ecosystem that they have on their back that is so sensitive that if it's disturbed and those moths are like, this is not a habitable place for me to stay, and they leave, then those sloths would have roughly 2.5 weeks left to live, because they could pass from starvation with a full belly of food, just unable to digest any of it if they don't have that bacteria produced by the moths. And so it's really, really sensitive, and a lot of people don't realize that. They just see somebody holding a sloth, and like, oh my gosh, I want to hold a sloth.
Right.
When the handlers are not there looking out for the well-being of the animal,
Right.
they just see it as a way to make a quick buck, because
Yes.
a lot of people are obsessed with sloths and want to hold one.
Right.
But they don't put too much thought into it before they go and interact with one of those. And I myself have a problem with, I try to see the best in people. I don't always realize that not everybody is as nice and good as I think in my head. And so a lot of people just do it the wrong way. And that's really the biggest reason behind having the sloths, is because a similar situation happened with John and Donna, the owners, before they had sloths, before they even lived in Tennessee. They went on a cruise ship, and when they were getting off that cruise ship was met with somebody with a baby sloth, and they were like, oh my gosh, I want to hold a baby sloth. Didn't put too much thought behind it, and it wasn't until about a year later that they realized that that sloth had approximately 2.5 week lifespan. And a lot of times those sloths are put back out into the rainforest, but without any of the moss, algae, or those moths, they can't live. A lot of times what the natives will do is, if they've got like a little just roadside petting zoo set up where it's not an actual facility, the day before they've dunked that sloth in a bucket of cleaner and scrubbed off all of that moss and algae, because people don't really want to hold a mossy sloth that has a bunch of bugs all over it. That's not they're best for business. So they'll do that, and they're not looking out for how long the animal's going to be able to live after that. What are you looking for, Puppet? What are you thinking? He is our very most ADHD sloth that we have. Most of the time, I try to sit either up on that counter or stand somewhere really still Because if he sees me moving around whatsoever, he's really tempted to lean back like
Right.
that and see what's going on. And since they're so much routine animals, if he sees my arm moving, that's how I transfer him. And so if he's looking at me and he sees my arm moving around, he's like, oh, am I supposed to climb up onto that? Because that was the way that he was conditioned. And Zoe was conditioned a little bit differently. She actually has a cue word, or if I say not, she knows that that's when she's supposed to climb onto somebody else.
Right.
And when we first got her, that little brown stuffed animal right there is the stuffed animal that she came with, and she knew that that cue word meant for her to climb onto that, and then we would hand the whole stuffed animal over to the person.
Right.
And then now that she's bigger than the stuffed animal is, it kind of just gets in the way, but. Thank you, buddy. I really do wish that I could understand the thought process that they have sometimes,
Yeah.
because sometimes it just seems like all I see is just a little buffering signal on the back of their head.
It's quieter than our grandchild.
Yes.
They were what, 6 weeks old?
8.
6 or 8, yeah.
He hears even just that little bit, that door opening, or if the fridge opens up, he picks up on that too. So since their eyesight is so poor, their sense of hearing is really good. Their sense of hearing and their sense of smell.
So is the deal with his tongue, is he smelling?
No, that's a weird quirk that he does. He's the only one that does that. Zoe never really did that, where she left her tongue sticking out like that, but he does all the time. And when he's sleeping, that tongue sticks like halfway out of his mouth.
Really?
Yes. It's funny.
Michaela, whenever you're ready, let me know. I'll go out there with Dash and you guys can stick his
I think it's right at about time, so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right at 10:30.
Is he hungry? Do I need to bring him food at all?
He ate just a little bit out of his bowl. I'd bring it just in case. He's been kind of a grazer this morning.
I might just eat it. I'm a little hungry.
It looks like it would be good, but I don't think I'd like that dog food in it.
You got sloth.
All right. So you'll come with me out here real quick. I'm gonna have you sanitize your hands one last time now, because I can't get Zoe for you. You'll sanitize right out here. And you can sit under the pavilion or wait in the car or whatever you want to, just right here again. And then when we finish up, we'll be back up there to meet you. All right. So I don't think the flash is gonna come down. I'm just gonna go ahead and close this because Nathan, he's starting to move a little bit. We'll see. He's starting to move around just a little bit more. So I will get Zoe. Be right back out. There's Zoe. This is Zoe.
Wow.
You see, she's a lot bigger and a lot lighter than Dash is. Dash will lighten up a little bit more than what he is right now. They'll get kind of this lighter coloration here in the middle of their backs. But when they're first born, when they're little babies, they're a lot darker because that's how they camouflage into the chest of the mother. Because with all the shadows up above them and everything with the leaves, helps them to camouflage in a lot more. So Zoe is a lot more picky than Dash is. She really only likes just real slow pets down the middle of her back. She's really ticklish with her sides being touched.
Okay.
And she's a lot more exploratory than Dash is too, so sometimes her most comfortable position is to be up around your shoulders like this, up high. You can see she sits a lot higher than Dash does. And that's where she's most comfortable with cuddling. But if she's down in your lap and she's in eating mode, she'll twist around this way, she'll twist around that way. She's really exploratory and moves a lot. And their spines have the ability to twist 180 degrees backwards in their lumbar spine back here. And so sometimes it can be hard to distinguish where her side and where her back is. And if you can't tell for certain, then just put both hands underneath her booty like that. You want to have a seat there, yeah. And I'll put this right here because she has not had her breakfast yet. And I'm going to imagine she's probably going to be pretty hungry. And look, she's already ready. She's got to reach around you just like Dash did. I'm going to put this arm here. She's probably going to go right up around your shoulders. Yeah, she might be in a hungry mode. What do you think, girl? You want to eat? Is that what you're looking for? No sweet potatoes this morning? Sweet potatoes and green beans is on the, or zucchini is on the menu. It's a lot different than
Yeah.
Dash, because Dash likes to be down low, and if you try to scoot him up higher, he's scooting back down against you because he wants to be down low in your lap. But when Zoe is in snuggle mode, if you put both hands up underneath her booty and scoot her up higher up onto your chest, she'll go with both hands up around your shoulders and put her little head right beside your neck to snuggle in like that. And she has done that since day one. Since when we first got her when she was 4 months old, she has wanted to be up around your shoulders like that. As soon as she would transfer off of that, the stuffed animal there, the first place she'd go to is up on her chest. And of course, when we first got her, they're so small, they're only like 2 pounds.
Right.
And they can't even wrap their legs all the way around your torso, but she still wanted to be up there around your shoulders so that she could wrap around your neck like that. What do you think, girl? Just zucchini today, don't want any sweet potato. And while she's chewing, you might be able to catch a little bit of a glimpse of her teeth there. A lot of people are surprised by how sharp they are, and that they don't have any teeth in the very front of their mouth. It's the 4 really sharp canines on the sides, and then back behind those, all of their molars are not flat like ours are. They're all pointed too, and they fit together perfectly so that the top are kind of shaped like this, and the bottom fit just perfectly in between the
Meshed
two.
together then.
And every time that they close their mouths, sometimes if she's not chewing and she just opens and closes it dry, you can hear a little squeak noise, and that's her teeth rubbing together to sharpen each other every time that she closes their mouth. So it's a self-sharpening system. I usually wait to tell people that until they realize that she's not going to go for your jugular. What do you think, girl? You going to snuggle mode?
She has a little bit of a smell.
Little bit, yeah, and she went to the bathroom 2 days ago, and so right after they go to the bathroom there for a couple days, they still smell like the mess that was left in there for a few hours. She can go up around your shoulders.
There you go.
She says, into snuggle mode. Did she leave a phone with you or anything? Do you want me to take some back for you? Yeah. I always forget to remind people of it beforehand. There we go. I'm sure she'll be happy later. Probably. It'll take her a few minutes, but if she stays right there and she stays real still, and it's all just real calm, everything's calm and slow, she'll fall asleep a lot of times. But then sometimes her encounters go differently every time, because she's so back and forth. I swear she's like kind of bipolar, because she'll be completely snuggled in 1 second, and then out of nowhere, nothing changes, nothing different, no loud noises, nothing. She'll just go full backwards and lean all the way back and clasp her little claws together and put one claw into her mouth. And then she'll just stay like that. She'll stay like that for a few seconds, and then sometimes if you're over close to the wall like that, she'll see those little hooks, and she likes to grab onto the hooks or put her little claws up on that ledge and do a little pull up to look up there, and she just gets exploratory sometimes. She likes to see what's going on. And if anything's different, like if we're up under the pavilion or something, she gets a lot more exploratory up there. And a lot of people are surprised by that, because they think that sloths should just be real lazy, not moving around,
Yeah.
just sitting in the same spot. But our sloths have a lot more energy than normal sloths do.
Okay.
And something else about our sloths is that we're very guarded of the time that we get to spend with them and other people get to spend with them. So I mentioned earlier how they're very routine animals and like to have the same schedule. And so Zoe has a certain amount of time in the morning and a certain amount of time in the afternoon where she does her encounters. And so if she were to be fully booked, she would only have 2 hours of encounters. So that would be an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. And she knows when those encounter times are. And Dash does too. And so right around, especially Dash in the afternoon at 4 o'clock is his next encounter time. So he'll have a long break from this encounter until this afternoon, where his next encounter is. But he knows right at the farm tour usually is going through right at the time that he's supposed to start his encounters.
Right.
And so if he hears people talking out there and kids and stuff laughing and talking, and he gets a lot more active. He will uncover himself, start reaching out, trying to grab onto somebody, anybody that walks by him, because he knows that it's supposed to be time for him to be held. And even if he does not have any encounters scheduled, and there's nobody that has booked for him, I still hold him for at least 30 minutes just to keep him on that schedule, because if I don't, he is fit to be tied for the rest of the evening.
Sleeping?
And on Friday, we're just about to get our 4th and final baby sloth in. So it's today's Wednesday, yeah, so 2 days. And she has been long awaited. We thought that we were gonna get baby, her name will be Chloe, so we'll have Flash, Dash, Zoe, and Chloe. And she'll be coming from the same breed that we got
Yeah.
Zoe and Dash from. So she'll be conditioned in the same way to be held and enjoy that. We thought that she was going to be on her way. This was a different sloth at the time, about 2.5 months ago. But once she was weaned from her mother and she was going through that final ambassador program, the final steps for her the breeder to realize which home she needed to go to, we were on the waiting list, we were on the next on the waiting list. And she was not supposed to be on her way to us, but after she was weaned from her mother, the breeder kind of started picking up that she wasn't genuinely enjoying it. She was just kind of, tolerating human interaction. And so he told us that, I know that you guys have been awaiting this and, thought that she was going to be coming to you, but it's just not going to be the best fit with how much you guys are planning to interact with your sloths and everything. And so she ended up just going to a different facility where it was basically going to be more so like a zoo, where she was going to be around people but not having to have that interaction. And sometimes when she's up around her shoulders like that, she starts to squeeze down over time and starts to slowly clamp down more and more. And some people are kind of like, is she on edge? Is she uncomfortable? Because she's kind of squeezing down around me. And her squeezing down like this is her relaxed state. So for a sloth, their claws work opposite to our hands, whereas open for this is just natural. It doesn't take any energy for me to do this. But to squeeze down or hold onto a branch, that's when I'm using muscles and tendons and energy to be able to make a fist. But for a sloth, squeezing down like that is actually their relaxed state, because all of the muscles and tendons and ligaments that are in their forearms are so tight that this is just natural. And to open up that claw, that's when they're using muscles and tendons and ligaments in the back of their forearm to open it up. So this is more difficult. So when she's squeezing down like that, she's just more comfortable. And if a sloth were to actually pass away holding onto the branch of a tree, they would continue to hang there until something rotted or knocked them off of that tree, because of the way that the locking mechanisms work in their claws. And so everything about a sloth is designed to be an upside down animal. Everything from the locking mechanisms in their claws, their digestive system, how they've got just that one-way valve, their circulatory system, and everything in between. So their circulatory system is extremely adaptable, whereas upside down is the most comfortable and natural position for them to be in. But they can go like this, they can be completely on the ground crawling, or they can be completely let go with their front claws, just holding on by their back feet, and extend all the way down to reach for a branch that's lower than them to eat those leaves. But their circulatory system will change to whatever position that they put themselves into, unlike ours, because if I do a handstand, my blood circulation is going to change to where all of the blood's going to be rushing to my head. Or even if I just hold my hand up like this for a certain amount of time, the blood's going to rush down to my shoulder. What are you looking at, girl? Are you posing? Are you posing? But theirs will change to whatever position that they put themselves into, so that they don't never have blood pooling to one side or the other of their body. What do you think, baby? What do you think?
So there's 2 other ladies out there, are they also?
Yes, they just started up at the pavilion. They started out with Dash, and Slash still has not come down.
Oh, okay.
So after we finish up here, then they'll hold Zoe for the next 30 minutes, and then she'll have her break until 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Gotcha.
What do you think, baby? You just look like you're pondering. Might have been able to hear just a little bit as she was closing her mouth, that
I can
little
hear
bit
a
of
little.
squeak. Yeah. And sometimes they'll do it, and it drives me crazy, where they won't even open their mouths, they just grind their teeth back and forth, and I'm like, oh, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. But for them, it's just natural. Another thing that we haven't talked about yet about them is that they have a total of 46 ribs, so that's double what we have.
Okay.
And that allows them to withstand falls from up to 100 feet in the air and be completely unharmed. And it works out really well for them because they fall about once a week on average.
Wow.
And those sarcopia trees grow up to be plus 100 plus feet up in the air. They're
They fall
very
in?
massive. So here we have cameras in their enclosures, and we have never seen them fall because they've memorized their enclosures. We have a netting system that's set up for them that the USDA requires that we have and everything. As the same thing for like water, they really don't drink any water, but the USDA requires that we have water dishes in there for them full of water. And they don't ever really drink. She plays in hers a little bit. Sometimes she'll splash around and it will watch her on video at nighttime. But they really don't drink much. They get the water from the veggies and things that they're eating. But it's still a requirement. So we have those nets just for that, but we've never seen them fall. But in the wild, they fall a lot more often because for them, what happens a lot of times is if they're just minding their own business in the middle of the day, staying in one spot, they don't really sleep all day long. They only really sleep about 12 to 13 hours. The rest of the time, they're just resting. They're staying in the same spot because they really can't see what's going on in the daytime. They see a lot better at night.
Gotcha.
So they'll be just minding their own business, hanging onto that branch. And if they see out of the corner of their eye something sneaking up towards them, they are booking it to the very end of that branch as quickly as they can. Because if they get out to the end of the branch, they're hoping that it'll be able to support their weight, a 10 or 15 pound sloth, but not that cat's weight. So if the jaguar gets out there and they're on top of that sloth and the branch breaks, the whole mess is gonna fall, but the sloth's gonna be able to survive it, whereas the cat's probably not. The cats are not built to be able to withstand those kind of falls. They're gonna be trying to land onto all 4 feet, which is a cat's natural instinct, and falling from that height is probably gonna break all 4 legs. But the sloth has no issue surviving that because they've got all those ribs that protect everything. My rib cage stops about here and all that's exposed. They have 2 sets of 23 where that bottom 23 protects all of that in the middle. So it just works out well for them. And their bones are also extremely pliable. So when they hit the ground, their rib cage will just flex under their body weight and go back to normal. And they've also got a lot of connective tissue in the middle of their abdominal cavity that connects all of their internal organs to the same central core in the middle of their body cavity. So they don't sustain internal damage either.
So most of their organs are lower or?
So the abdominal organs, so like their intestines and their stomach and everything like that is down below. And then they have the diaphragm just like we do, and then the thoracic cavity is up top. But the internal damage is really where you're gonna get it down in the abdominal cavity. Like if we got into a car accident and our body cavity hit the steering wheel or hit the airbag, then our internal organs are gonna hit the front of our body cavity. They don't really experience that because of all that connective tissue that's holding it all in the middle really tightly.
So a couple of months ago, my wife and I drove to Alaska,
Mm-hmm.
and we witnessed a head-on collision in the middle of nowhere
Oh my goodness.
at 70 miles, right in front of us, 70 miles an hour, and the guy was in a van, and it was 2.5 hours before we could get any rescue out to him, but the airbags and the dashboard hit him,
Yeah.
and he was alive. We couldn't, he didn't know he was alive. As soon as they released the dashboard and the thing, he just started, all the internal bleeding all started.
Oh.
He just started swelling up and everything. But, yeah, it was.
That's crazy. Thank you, girl. You looking for more food? You try sweet potato?
I don't want to.
And she'll go through days like that too. Same with Flash. Usually, if Flash is being picky, he picks sweet potatoes if that's what he wants. And for Zoe, if she's being picky, she'll pick the squash. Squash or zucchini are her favorites. Are you sleeping? Got your eyes halfway cracked? What do you think, baby? And so typically if people picture a sloth in their head, or most of the marketing for sloths are all 3-toed sloths, those are the ones that have the bands there across their eyes.
Yeah.
And that's typical of a 3-toed sloth. The 2-toes don't really have that. And there's a lot of other differences between the two as well. The biggest one being the size difference. The 2-toed sloths can get to be up to 20 pounds at their max. Zoe and Flash are both about 15 on average. It does fluctuate quite a bit depending on the time of week that it is. And if they've just gone to the bathroom, because they drop down about 1/3 of their entire body weight when they go.
Wow.
But the 3-toed sloths sometimes are referred to as pygmies or dwarfs because they really only get to be about 10 pounds at their max. So The next most stark difference is that the two-toed sloths, they can turn their spines where their hips are facing one way and turn their spines 180 degrees backwards to look back behind them. The three-toed sloths can't do that, but what they can do, which is really creepy to me, is that they have like 4 or 5 extra vertebrae in their cervical spine that allows them to turn their heads 180 degrees backwards.
Okay,
So you'll see a lot of videos of them holding onto a branch and slowly twisting that head back behind them. It's just really creepy for me for whatever reason.
Yeah, it was funny, when I was growing up, I was like, I was in the Navy and I had a guy in my shop and he was just so slow and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up calling him Sloth. I mean, it was just, and I had little stickers of sloths, and it just kind of, over the years, it was like, people would buy me a little sloth
Yeah,
thing and
it's
everything,
kind of
so,
stuck.
and it's like, yeah, so, in the family, I'm the sloth guy.
Yeah, cool.
So,
You'll definitely have the pictures to prove it now.
Yeah.
The sloth
my
whisperer.
daughter was like, she bought this present
Oh, yeah?
for Christmas, and it was like, when can we get up there? When can we get up there? So,
Yeah.
it's just, and, we almost had to reschedule this one today, but
Oh, yeah.
it was like, no, we're gonna make it work.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys got to come.
Yeah. So what did you study something?
So I have an animal science degree, bachelor's in animal science, and then my end goal is to become a veterinarian. So this is just kind of a stop along the way. I had applied to vet school last year and got an interview with UT, which is a success in and of itself, because vet school is very competitive and usually takes multiple times of applying to actually get in. Because there's more applicants into vet school than there is medical school, and way fewer schools than there are for medical school.
We don't have a UT though.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're UGA guys.
Yeah, well, I had applied last year. I applied to UT, UGA, and Auburn, and didn't get into Auburn or UGA, but I got an interview with UT, but didn't get accepted in the end. So I figured that with my gap year that I was forced to take, I was going to get some more exotic experience, because I had a good amount with large and small animal.
So you want to do more exotic stuff?
Really, my heart lies in large animal, livestock animals, and the people that care for the livestock animals. Because with companion animals, it's kind of like I kind of relate it to like a preemie baby in the NICU, because of the parents, especially if they're first-time parents. First time they've had a preemie baby, got a lot of questions. They don't understand what's going on, the different diagnostics. It's the same way with companion animals. They want to understand, where's my money going, why is it so much, and what are the diagnostics that you're running. And it's a lot more high maintenance to work with with companion animal owners.
Yeah, the Air Force has a vet.
Yeah, I was hearing that. I heard, when I was graduating from high school, that's the big thing that, you get all the recruiters, that come for you and everything, and that's what they were telling me, but I never really looked into it too much.
So they, in Hawaii, and they're mainly dogs. I mean, it's because of security stuff and everything, but in Hawaii, the Navy has a bunch of dogs, and then the Air Force, and they share, the Navy and the Air Force share the same, the vet for everything in Hawaii, for anything military in Hawaii. Pretty bad duty station too, I would say.
Yeah. That definitely would be nice to, because I would imagine they probably pay for your schooling if you went through it, because that's the biggest thing with vets is that, people think that vets make bukus of money. They don't make nearly as much as
and the time frame is the same, right?
It is, and and for vet school, you don't just learn dogs or just learn cats, like human doctors will just learn the humans, and now humans and adults and babies are a little bit different, but for the most part, it's just the same anatomy. But for vet school, it's all of the animals. And then afterwards, you specialize in what you want. But you'll learn about sloths, you'll learn about all the exotics, even if you're not going to work with them.
So my brother-in-law, my wife's brother and sister live in a remote bush town in Alaska.
Oh, wow.
And they have sled dogs. They raise sled dogs.
Yeah.
And there's the closest vet in Fairbanks.
Yeah.
So every day a meal plane comes in and they unload all the cargo and whatever passengers and everything like that. But if you need a vet, you put your in a crate and you send it, and the vet picks it up at the Fairbanks airport.
Yeah.
Does does whatever it has, when it's all authentic, they put it back on the plane and send it back. So the vets never, every once out of a blue moon, they're like, once a year, they might, okay, we're gonna come to this bush town.
Yeah.
If you need pet care.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but my brother-in-law pretty much, the vets give him all the shots and everything, and said he takes care of his own dog and
Yeah.
everything, and
Yeah.
so.
And that's how a lot of people do it even here, is that they'll just buy all their shots and everything from like Co-op or Tractor Supply. They do it themselves.
Yeah, so, but yeah, it's interesting, because, those dogs are funny. I mean, they're just, and you feel bad for them sometimes, but that's what they love to do.
Yeah,
you know?
it is, yeah.
They're,
Working dogs.
they're working dogs, and, it's just, you know, you look at them, they got a little doghouse, and they're chained, and man, you tie them up to a sled,
Yeah.
and here, I got a video of me on there
Yeah.
about me, I was, 2 years ago, I went, I had a service call in the middle of, in Fairbanks in January. I don't think you'd wanna go to Fairbanks in January. I did, but I got there, and then, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hour flight on the mail plane to where they live right on the Yukon River. And, I'm like, I've never been to Alaska
Yeah.
in the middle of winter, so.
Yeah.
I went up, I had a blast, man.
Oh.
I was mushing,
Yeah.
and they don't call them snowmobiles up there, they call them snow machines.
Oh.
So, but yeah, I went up, my brother-in-law had one broken, snowmobile, and it probably took us 3 hours to try to finally fix it. Had to take the whole engine out and a
Oh,
bunch of
wow.
stuff to it. We put it all back together, put all the fluids in it, fired it up, watched it for a minute, everything looked good.
Yeah.
He says, all right, let's go. And we rode 60 miles in the middle of
Oh
nowhere
my
with
goodness.
24 feet of snow. And that's probably the most in my life that I was ever scared,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I just fixed this thing.
Yeah.
You know, hope I did a good job.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, I've heard some, that's one of my biggest fears is like, you know, getting lost and not being able to do anything
Yeah.
about it. And I've heard a lot of horror stories from, you know, people getting stuck when it's, you know, frigid, freezing outside and conditions like that.
It was 22 below,
Oh, my goodness.
and at that point, you know, you're 22 or 32 or
Yeah,
40,
it's all
you
the
don't
same.
know at that point. But yeah, it was quite interesting. So,
Well, you have put her to sleep.
oh, good. All my boring tales.
Your eyes are just barely cracked.
I mean, I don't need to finish here. I mean, if you want to get those other people here,
Alright.
you know,
Alright, Zozo.
yeah.
Little girl. I know, she tries to go back in for a last snuggle when she sees me coming, because sometimes when I come to get her, if she doesn't have anybody else in here and she knows there's nobody else to pass to, she thinks she's gonna be going back into her enclosure, and she doesn't want to. And I'm gonna go up to finish up with these other people, but if I go to put her back into her enclosure and I go to walk out,
Yeah.
I have to leave pretty quickly, because if she sees me leaving and I'm not gonna be spending any more time with her, she starts to